Shalom, shalom. So, after making my last video where I was talking about how David tried to be like a Roman and murder an innocent man to cover up his sin, I made this little meme. I shouldn't have looked upon Bathsheba. Now she's pregnant. How can I cover up my sin? Which is what he did. I mean, this is what, let's go literally to the text. So, a Jew on the thread told me David didn't murder Uriah. Uriah died in battle. Okay. Is that what the text actually says? Yes, he did die in battle, but what did Father tell us through Nathan? Look at 2 Samuel 12:9, and we'll look at the Hebrew too. Why have you despised the word of Jehovah by doing evil in his sight? You have struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword. You have taken his wife to be your wife, and you have killed him with the sword of the sons of Ammon. See, the father is telling him the choice of the weapon of murder was using the sons of Ammon. But I think it even gets worse because he bribed his chief consult Joab, send him to the worst place possible, then have your men pull back. Joab is also complicit in this. Now let's look at some of the interlinear. Madua baza et davar Yehovah asa ra ain et Uriah Hittite naka herav et Isa laka et harag herav bin Amon. So this word is telling you, and this is his weapon, the Hereb ben Ammon, the sword of the sons of Ammon, was how he executed and murdered Uriah. To kill, to slay, murder, destroy, murderer, slayer out of hand. He murdered him. And he tried to use this act to cover up his already sin with Bathsheba. But then we get later on, and this is why having a foundation of Torah is so important. You won't end up preaching veganism like some of these Messianics who believe that Genesis 1 is the end of dietary restrictions, right? And, I've seen Torah people saying this. Like, this is utter spiritual nonsense. This is the new age. And I'm still asking Father if I should go deeper on that because, this is so important to understand. Our bodies were not designed by the Creator to eat only vegetables. So Deuteronomy 21 is like an incredible uh, Torah message. Like, and I've seen this so often, like, it just hammers you with this repeated messages that if you truly understand what's being said, it breaks down the Talmudic lies and the Christian lies. Shalom, my brother. I've dearly missed you. I wish you were closer. So in Deuteronomy 21, let's start reading it. If a slain person is found fallen in the open country, in the land which Yahweh your Elohim gives you to possess, and it is not known who has struck him, then your elders and your judges shall go out and measure the distance to the cities which are around the slain one. And it shall be that the city which is nearest to the slain man, that is The elders of that city shall take the heifer of the herd, which has not been worked, which has not pulled a yoke, and the elders of that city shall bring the heifer down to a valley with running water, which has not been plowed or sown. They shall then break the heifer's neck there in the valley. And then the priests of the sons of Levi shall come near, for Yahweh your Elohim has chosen them to minister for him, to bless in the name of Yahweh. Every dispute and every assault shall be settled by them. And all the elders of that city who are nearest to the slain man shall wash their hands over the heifer. And this is fascinating, right? Because there are two times in the New Testament where it preaches against this being a righteous thing to do. Number one is, of course, Matthew 15, which is in Mark 7 as well. The Pharisees were eating and they first washed their hands before they ate their bread. And there are a lot of things he could have gone against that were traditions of men. But why the washing of hands, which cleanses us before we eat? And he insults them for washing their hands. And he even goes on further and says, it is not what enters the mouth that defiles the man. And we were just talking about food, veganism, because there are people that cling to these Christian lies. That putting meat in your mouth defiles you. If that were true, Father would say it, but he specifically lays out what animals are clean and what is unclean. Leviticus 11, which is repeated in Deuteronomy 14. He tells us in Deuteronomy 12 that if the place where Yahweh Elohim chooses to set his name is too far away from you, which it is because it's not restored, then you may sacrifice of your herd and flock which Yahweh has given you, as I have commanded you, and you may eat within your gates whatever you desire. Just as a gazelle or a deer is eaten because they have a cloven hoof and they chew the cud, they're clean, so you will eat it. And this is like goes against the rabbis too, because the rabbis say you have to kill it in a kosher way. The word kashrut is not Torah. And there's nothing that tells you you have to capture a gazelle in a net and haul it to the local rabbi to make sure he kills it with a kosher knife. So you will eat it, the unclean and the unclean alike. So this is about whether or not it's mutilated. Because there are times when you're going to come across something that wouldn't be worthy of sacrifice, but it can still be sacrificed to be eaten. Only be strong in yourselves not to eat the blood. For the blood is the life, and you shall not eat the life with the flesh. You shall not eat it, you shall pour it on the ground like water. And you shall not eat it, so that it may be well with you and your sons after you, for you will be doing what is right in the sight of Yahweh. Absolutely, Brother Charles. Every person in Egypt slaughtered their own lamb. They didn't have a rabbi do it with a kosher knife. So the other part that's kind of interesting, I don't know if I find the right text. Yeah, Matthew 27. So uh, this is the point where it has the Jews being condemned for choosing him, because apparently Pilate was actually merciful and offered a man accused of murder to be released. And then they said, why, what evil did he do? But they were crying out all the more, saying, let him be crucified. And now when Pilate saw what he was accomplishing, nothing, but rather the riot was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd, saying, I am innocent of this man's blood. See that to yourselves. This is just crazy. Why would this Roman care about that? And, the fact that the writer put this in is just fascinating because remember, Deuteronomy 21 says, the elders of that city that are nearest to the man who was slain, the innocent man, shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken in the valley. And they shall answer, our hands did not shed this blood, nor did our eyes see it. I mean, this is what Pilate is doing and saying. And the writer has the Jews who he hates say, his blood be on us and our children. How, I mean, think about that. How is that even possible? Do you know what Torah says about that? Can the Son bear the sins of the Father? Father shall not be put to death for the sons, nor the sons shall be not be put to death for their fathers. Each one shall be put to death for their own sin. So this idea that that he has the Jews saying is impossible. And it's also crazy because you you believe he died to cover sin, but apparently not the act of quote unquote obeying God to do this act of killing an innocent man to cover sin. That's not covered. So going on in Deuteronomy 21, atone for your people whom you have redeemed, O Yehovah, and do not place the guilt of innocent blood in the midst of your people Israel, and the blood guiltiness shall be atoned for them. So you shall purge the guilt of innocent blood from your midst, and when you do what is right in the eyes of Yehovah. This is powerful. It's saying your actions are what will ultimately atone for the murder of the innocent man. Not putting your faith in anything, not trusting the New Testament man. In fact, not even the sacrifice really did it. It's just an offering to remove the guilt. The atonement comes from their actions when you do what is right in the eyes of Yahweh. So the next portion of this, if you go out to battle against your enemies and Yahweh your Elohim gives them over into your hands and you take them away captive, you see among them a beautiful woman and set your affection on her, you would take her as a wife for yourself. This is what David did, right? He saw this beautiful woman, a foreign woman, a Hittite, and then you shall bring her home into your house, and she shall shave her head and trim her nails. And she shall remove the clothes of her captivity, and shall remain in your house and weep for her father and foam for her. And after that you may go into her and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. And it will be that if you do not desire her, then you shall let her go wherever she wishes, but you shall certainly not sell her for money. You shall not mistreat her because you have humbled her. Think about it. Like David essentially treated this woman like she was a captive in a battle after killing her husband. But it goes on, right? Verse 15, if a man has two wives, and David multiplied his wives, he had many wives. This is one of the violations of Deuteronomy 17. If you look, it says, you shall not multiply your wives. And he had 7, 8, 9 wives. I mean, people think that only applies to Solomon, but I don't think so anymore. David had more than he needed. The one loved and the other unloved, and both loved. The unloved have borne him sons. If the firstborn son belongs to the unloved, then it shall be in the day he wills that he has to his sons. He cannot make the son of the loved firstborn before the son of the unloved who is firstborn, because he shall recognize the firstborn son of the unloved by giving him a double portion of all that he has, for he is the first of his vigor. The legal judgment for the firstborn belongs to him. Absolutely, brother. Like, David sinned in taking Bathsheba. He sinned in murdering Uriah. But then he kept sinning. And this is what this is what convinces me, like, the test doesn't end with the New Testament. It doesn't. See, one of the promises he made was to Michal, right? He made an oath that he would not let the house of Saul go childless. But then he does that to Michal after exposing his own nakedness before Yahweh, which violates Torah. And she's like, there, and I think this is intentional by the authors of the history, literally revealing the emperor has no clothes. I mean, this is one of the earliest takes of that. And she's literally saying, look, the emperor is naked. And David didn't repent. You said, well, how do you know that's against Torah? Well, let's check it out. Exodus 20. You shall make an altar of earth for me, and you shall sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, your sheep and your oxen, in every place where I can cause my name to be remembered. I will come to you and bless you. And if you make an altar of stone for me, you shall not build it out of cut stones, for if you wield it, your tool on it, you'll profane it. And you shall not go up the steps of my altar, so that your nakedness will be exposed on it. Yet here he is, dancing with fervor, revealing his nakedness to the Most High. And Michal says, what you've done is wrong. So the other part of this is at the end of his life. And look at it. It even admits that there's a sin there, but you just ignore it. So when the heir is being chosen, trying to remember where that's at. It's been a while since I've read this history. It's weird that Nathan conspires with Bathsheba here because Adam Yah was at that time he was the firstborn. He should have received the kingdom. But Bathsheba perverts David to make her own son king, which is a violation of Torah. And it goes on. Deuteronomy 21:18. If any man has a stubborn and rebellious son who will not obey his father and mother, and when they discipline him, he will not even listen to them, then his father and mother shall seize him and bring him out of the elders of the city at the gateway of his hometown. Then they shall say to the elders of the city, this son of ours is stubborn and rebellious. He will not listen to our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. Then all the men of the city shall stone him, and he will die. So you'll purge the evil from your midst, and all Israel will hear it and fear it. When one of David's sons did the unthinkable, oh, what was her name? Amnon violates Tamar. That's right. I was putting Tamara. That's what I was finding. So Absalom had a beautiful sister whose name was Tamar. That Amnon, the son of David, loved her. And Amnon was so distressed because of his sister that Tamar had made himself ill, for she was virgin. So it was hard in Amnon's sight to do anything to her. But Amnon had a friend whose name was Jonadab, the son of Shimeah, David's brother. And Jonadab was a very shrewd man. And he said to him, O son, the king, why are you so depressed morning after morning? Will you not tell me? And then Amnon said to him, I am in love with Tamar, the sister of my brother Absalom. And Jonadab then said to him, lie down on your bed and pretend to be ill, and your father will come to see you. And you will say to him, please let my sister Tamar come to me and give me some food to eat, and let her prepare the food in my sight, that I may see it and eat from her hand. So Amnon lay down and pretended to be ill. The king came to him to see him, and Amnon said to the king, please let my sister Tamar come and make me a couple cakes in my sight, that I may eat from her hand. And then David sent to the house for Tamar, saying, go now to your brother's Amnon's house and prepare food for him. So Tamar went to her brother Amnon's house, and he was lying down. She took dough and kneaded it, made cakes in his sight, and baked the cakes. She took the pan and dished them out before him, but he refused to eat. And Amnon said, have everyone go out from me. So everyone went out from him. Then Amnon said to Tamar, bring me the food into the bedroom, that I may eat from your hand. So Tamar took the cakes which she had made and brought them into the bedroom to her brother Amnon. And then she brought them nearer to him to eat, but he took hold of her and said, come lie with me, my sister. But she said to him, no, my brother, do not violate me, for such a thing is not done in Israel. Do not do this disgraceful thing. As for me, where could I get rid of my reproach? And as for you, you will be like one of the wicked fools in Israel. So now please speak to the king, for he will not withhold me from you. It's such a weird thing for her to say. But he was not willing to listen to her voice. Now he was stronger than she, so he violated her and lay with her. Then Amnon hated her with a very great hatred, for the hatred which he hated her was greater than the love with which he had to her. And Amnon said to her, get up and go away. But she said to him, no, because this wrong in sending me away is greater than the other that you have done to me. But he was not willing to listen to her. Then he called his young men who attended him and said, now cast this woman out of my presence and lock the door behind her. And now she had on a long sleeved garment, for in this manner the virgin daughters of the king dressed themselves in robes. That his attendant took her out and locked the door behind her. Then Tamar put on ashes on her head, tore her long sleeved garment which was on her. She put her hand on her head and went away, crying as loud as she went. So Absalom, my brother, said to her, has Amnon your brother been with you? But now keep silent, my sister. He is your brother. Do not take this matter to heart. So Tamar remained and was desolate in her brother Absalom's house. When King David heard of all these matters, he was very angry. But Absalom did not speak to Amnon, either good or bad, for Absalom hated Amnon because he had violated his sister Tamar. Now it happened after 2 full years. Why did it go on this long? Remember, uh, uh, Amnon violated his sister. He was the stubborn and rebellious son. He was not listening to his father. He was not listening to Yah, to Torah. David should have taken him to the judges. And this is, goes back to Deuteronomy 17 as well. Deuteronomy 17, and this is a passage the Talmudists try to use to justify going to a leader, right? And starting in verse 8, if any case is too difficult for you to judge between one kind of homicide, between one kind of lawsuit, and between one kind of assault, and another being cases of dispute in your gates. And this is an important part because Father knows your heart. He knows that going to be too lenient in these issues. You're not going to use just weights and measures. Then you shall arise and go up to the place which Yahweh your Elohim chooses. So you shall come to the Levitical priest or the judge who is in the office those days, and you shall inquire of them, and they will declare to you the judgment of the case. And you shall do according to the terms of the judgment which they declare to you from that place which Yahweh chooses. And you shall be careful to do according to all that they teach you. And this is what the Talmudists use to justify rabbinic Talmudism. But think about this. Could the judge declare a judgment that is not in the Kitab Sefer Torah? And if you go back to Deuteronomy 4:2, it says, "You shall not add to or remove from the commands that I'm giving to you today," which is repeated in Deuteronomy 12:32. And it goes on in Deuteronomy 13:1-9. If anyone teaches you to follow after different commands or to a different Elohim, you are not supposed to follow them. So the fact that you have to listen to the judge is not a universal commandment. If that judge is telling you, hey, you should listen to the judgment I'm giving from the Spirit, like, okay, where is that in Torah? And look what it says in verse 11. According to the terms of the Torah, which they teach you, and according to the judgment which they tell you, you shall do. You shall not turn aside from the word which they declare to you to the right or the left. The man who acts presumptuously by not listening to the priest who stands there to minister to Yahweh Elohim, or to the judge, that man shall die. And this is repeated again in Deuteronomy 18:15-19, the prophet like Moses, right? But then it says, it has another safety valve there in Deuteronomy 18:20-22. If that man speaks presumptuously, speaking things that are not in Torah, you shall not fear that man. Also, again, an interesting New Testament connection. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, Behold, a behold a gluttonous man and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. Yet wisdom is vindicated by her deeds. Like, why would he say this? Why was he accused of doing that? Well, the only reason he'd be accused of doing that is it's true, and he doesn't deny that. That this is the sign of a rebellious son. He will not listen to our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. He doesn't say, well, you're right, I shouldn't be with those that are gluttons and drunkards. And why are they presently being called that? You know, if they are no longer gluttons and drunkards, you know what he could have said? They have repented for the kingdom to come. Then what do we see at the very end of Deuteronomy 21? The man on the tree. If a man has committed a sin, the judgment of which he is death, and he is put to death, you hang him on a tree. His corpse shall not hang on the night on the tree, but you shall surely bury him on the same day. And this had nothing to do with it being Passover. This is because cursed of God is he who is hanged, so that you do not make your land unclean, which Yahweh your Elohim gives you as an inheritance. The moment you put the man on a tree, he's cursed. And this goes back to what he tells you, right? In John 3:14. And this reminds me of some of the comments I've had recently. How can I get to those real quick here? So Luke 10:25 here. he talked about something that was very similar to what I had. I told him, Paul was definitely a liar, but do you believe none of the gospels were affected by Pauline theology? I do think they were tainted, but I have had too many miracles happen in my life not to believe. Yeah, I've had a ton of miracles happen in my life. And this is one of the things I was weeping about when the truth was revealed to me. And one of the things he says actually happened to me, where he was standing near a guy and he yelled in the name of JC, "Get away from me." I was standing near a homeless man and he was seriously drugged out. I could sense a spirit of harm in this man. But there was also this powerful surge of electricity going through from the bottom of my feet to my head. I felt that. And I felt it was like a suit of armor. But the moment he revealed the truth to me, and I was crying to Father for days, like, what do I do with all these things that happened in the name of JC? What do I do with all these experiences? The heart is more deceitful than all else, and who's desperately sick, who can know it? The fact that we seek experience over truth is a big red flag. Kitab Sefer Torah is truth. Our experience is from our heart. It's not truth. And, if you know that you're supposed to serve Yahweh alone, look at blessed is the man who trusts in Yahweh and whose trust is Yahweh. He will be like the tree planted by the water. And I've gone over this several times how, the trust in Yahweh, the Kitab Sefer Torah, Psalm 1, it makes you the tree that is like it's planted by water, even though that you're in the heat, you're in the affliction, your leaves will still be green. You won't be anxious in the year of drought, nor ever refrain from yielding fruit. And the idle man teaches that what matters is what soil you're planted in, where Yehovah teaches you it's where you plant your trust. If your trust is planted in Yehovah, it doesn't matter what soil you're in. If you're reading the Torah and meditating on it day and night, Psalm 1, how blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, like we saw repeatedly in the history. David walked in the counsel of the wicked. His sons walked in the counsel of the wicked. Solomon walked in the counsel of the wicked. His sons walked in the counsel of the wicked. Nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the Torah of Yahweh. In his Torah he meditates day and night. And he will be like a tree firmly planted by streams of water. The same thing that you see in Jeremiah, which yields its fruit in season, and its leaf does not wither, and in whatever he does, he prospers. Father wants to prosper us here. And this goes back to, you know, over spiritualizing things, which you see in Christianity. This prospering's for the kingdom to come. No, it's for here and now. Yah made you flesh and bone in your mother's womb. He made you to seek him, to obey him. And when you do that, he will prosper you. But the fact that the wicked prosper doesn't mean that they're obedient. It doesn't mean that being prosperous here is bad. Absolutely. Amen, brother. It is so powerful to understand. Truth matters more than experience. Truth matters more than experience. And if you look at the curses, which I've been over, like read the curses because it tells you what happens with your experience when you're cursed. Yahweh will strike you with madness, with blindness, with bewilderment of heart. How does that not sound like what you experienced while holding this man up as an idol? A man that was on the stake, cursed of God, who they cried out and said, let him save himself. He couldn't save himself, and yet you believe he can save you. When the New Testament says that God raised him from the dead. He didn't raise himself. You see how deep the lies go? Then you understand that you were struck with madness. You were struck with blindness. You were struck with this bewilderment of your heart. And you will grope at noon as the blind man gropes in darkness, and you will not succeed in your ways. You will not be prosperous. And think about what he tells you. Go and sell all that you have. You shall only be oppressed and robbed in all your days. Sell everything you have for my kingdom. Castrate yourself for my kingdom. With none to save you, you shall betroth a wife, but another man will violate her. You shall build a house, but you will not live in it. You shall plant a vineyard, but you will not use the fruit. Your ox shall be slaughtered before your eyes, but you will not eat of it. Your donkey may be torn away from you, but you will never be returned to you. Your sheep shall be given to your enemies, and you shall have none to save you. Your sons and daughters shall be given to another people, while your eyes look on and yearn for them all the day long. It's interesting, I never really connected that one. Deuteronomy 13, right? Crud. If your brother, your mother's son, your son or your daughter, or the wife you cherish, or your friend who is as your own soul entices you secretly, saying, let us go serve other Elohim, whom neither your father or your fathers have known, of the Elohim of the peoples around you, near you or far from you, from one end of the earth to the other, and you shall not be willing to accept him or to listen to him, and your eyes shall not pity him, and you shall not spare him or conceal him. And that's repeated in Micah 7 of a cursed people. The best of them is like a briar, the most upright like a thorn hedge. The day when your post, your watchman, your punishment will come. At the time of their panic will happen. Do not believe in a neighbor. Do not have confidence in a close companion. From her who lies in your bosom, guard the openings of your mouth. For son treats father as a wicked fool. Daughter rises up against mother, and daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies are the men of his own household. And this is the same words you see the idol using. And this is about a cursed people. And a brother will betray brother to death, and father his child, and children will rise up against their parents and cause them to be put to death. And you'll be hated by all because of my name. Like you look at Luke's version of this. But these things, they will lay hands on you and persecute you, delivering you to the synagogues and prisons, bringing you before the kings, the governor, for my name's sake. Deuteronomy 13. It will result in an opportunity for your testimony, so set in your hearts not to prepare beforehand to defend yourselves, for I will give you a mouth and wisdom which none of your opponents will be able to resist or refute. But you will be betrayed even by parents and brothers and relatives and friends, and they will put some of you to death, and you'll be hated all because of my name. Deuteronomy 13. And Mark says the same thing, that you are cursed because of his name. But see to yourselves, for they will deliver you to the courts. You will be beaten in the synagogues, and you will stand before governors and kings for my sake, and was a witness to them, as the gospel must be first proclaimed to all the nations. And when they lead you away, delivering you up, do not worry beforehand what you say, and say whatever you speak, and that is not speak, but it is from the HS. But brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child, and children will rise up against their parents and have them put to death. And you'll be hated by all because of my name. Deuteronomy 13. You're cursed because of his name. Deuteronomy 28. Your sons and your daughters shall be given to another people. While your eyes look on and yearn for them all the day long, there will be nothing you can do, because they've been stolen in their heart by the fisher of men. People whom you do not know shall eat up the produce of your ground and all your labors, and you will never be anything but oppressed and crushed by all your days. You shall be driven mad by the sight of what your eyes see. And think about that. I had these experiences. I saw shades in my house because I was being driven mad. He was trying to reach me through these things, that I turn from the cursed object to Yah alone. And I did. I decided that truth trumps experience. And that includes with the house of David. David's son, whom did what David was supposed to do, ultimately sinned himself. He slept with his father's wives, his concubines. And then his father's men chased him, and he ended up being hung from a tree, which made him cursed. But it gets even worse if you know Torah, because they did not remove his body. His body remained on that tree. And it really made me think, like, are we being told from the beginning that the cursed man, was cursed all the way back to David? And there's this interesting verse in Micah 1. All this is for the transgression of Jacob, all for the sins of the house of Israel. And what are the transgression of Jacob? Is it not Samaria? And what is the high place of Judah? Is it not Jerusalem? And I read that again. I was like, it's literally telling us the high place of Judah is the city of Jerusalem. And then he goes on to tell you what he's going to do to Jerusalem, that it's going to be destroyed. And it was twice. And then they rebuilt it again, complete with all the idols, not destroying first the idols in their heart. And I don't just mean Christianity, I mean Talmudic Judaism as well. That's the high place of Judah. They still haven't put their trust only in Yahweh. They haven't meditated daily on Kitab Sefer Torah. So we have to stand up like Phineas, like Jacob, like Joshua, like Caleb. We have to be the standard bearers for righteousness. You have to be zealous like Phineas when the idolaters came into the house to multiply themselves. Put the spear in his side and let the blood and water flow out, and then you will know he is the cistern that can hold no living water. Hallelujah. May we all have a blessed week.